Welcome back. Former Trump administration Defense Secretary Mark Esper says the former president's alleged mishandling of classified documents places our nation's security at risk. Meanwhile, Trump says he didn't initially hand over all subpoenaed documents because he was too busy to go through the boxes they were contained in and to take out his personal materials. Secretary Esper, author of the New York Times best-selling memoir A Sacred Oath, joins us now. Secretary Esper, good to have you. We obviously worked together in the Trump administration. Good to see you again.
What do you think about?
Thank you. What do you think about President Trump's defense? Is this reasonable that he didn't have time to respond to the subpoena?
I think he had more than enough time, a couple years. I think Bill Barr, my former colleague, laid it out pretty well that, they asked and then went through a series of steps over months and asked again. And eventually there was a private entreaty made and then a subpoena. I mean, there was a series of steps that went through to go this route. And look, President Trump is innocent till proven guilty. That's a core American principle. And he'll have a chance to make that case at some point, I guess, in court.
Now, we've got to go around the world with you since you were the defense secretary. Got to ask you, sir, President Biden's comment calling Xi Jinping a dictator is making a lot of news, mostly because it came on the heels of Secretary Blinken going to China to try and repair that relationship. Do you think that is going to affect, that Biden's comment is going to affect the relationship, or does it really not matter?
Yeah, look, it does affect things. I mean, I don't disagree with his assertion, his description of Xi Jinping, but the fact that it comes within 24 hours of Tony Blinken being in Beijing trying to make nice with Xi Jinping is just kind of odd. And we know that in the wake of that, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spoke up against it. They issued a demarche to our ambassador. So clearly they're not happy with the remark.
You know, one of the things, talking about Secretary Blinken's trip to China, one of the things that they did not get out of the trip, which is something that Blinken said was a priority, was this resumption of military-to-military talks between the United States and China. Is it dangerous that we don't have those communications now? And what else could the Biden administration do to actually get them going?
Look, I think it's important that we talk to not just our friends, but our adversaries, and in this case, the Chinese. I made a point of mine to talk to my counterpart in Beijing every few months or so, or meet with him when we were abroad. So I think it's important to have those chains, those communications links. But my concern has been that we were so eager and anxious to get these talks going, to have a meeting in Beijing, that almost made us look desperate, and play into the Chinese narrative that the tension between our two countries was America's fault, which is completely not true. It's the Chinese behavior that's caused this. And I'm afraid it played into their narrative. And now I'm concerned on the back end, what did we or will we give up in order to try and play nice with the Chinese, which again makes the remark by President Biden regarding Xi Jinping being a dictator all the more strange.
Now, also going around the world, we know Ukraine is in the middle of their counteroffensive, and President Biden has said that it's not yet time for NATO to accept Ukraine, for Ukraine to join that coalition. Do you agree with President Biden's stance?
Look, I think Ukraine needs to be a member of NATO. I think a membership offer at Vilnius, the NATO summit next month, is unlikely. Ukraine understands that too, but we need to provide a clear path forward for Ukraine to become a member of NATO. At this point in time, Ukraine is probably one of the most powerful Western militaries in Europe, and maybe one of the most NATO interoperable. And given the fact that they've decimated Russia's ground army, I think they've earned a spot in NATO. And certainly admitting them to NATO at some point will not only bolster their own defense, but enhance stability and security in Europe. So for those reasons, it needs to happen.
You know, we just had Senator Graham on the show, and we were talking about his press conference with Senator Blumenthal yesterday, in which they basically warned Putin and his generals that any use of tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine would be tantamount to attacking NATO, and that we would be forced to respond. Do you agree with what those senators are proposing?
Well, I didn't hear exactly what they said. I like it whenever a Republican and Democrat get up and stand together and speak from the same song sheet, if you will. Clearly, we need to be cognizant of what Russia may be doing with regard to tactical nuclear weapons, but not be deterred. So I always get careful about drawing red lines or thinking through hypotheticals, but it's something we need to watch carefully. And I suspect use of a tactical nuclear weapon, however unlikely it is, and I think it's very unlikely, would prompt some type of NATO response.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.